Hello, 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 hello. We're gonna get started in about 5 minutes. So you guys start making your way to your seats in the next 5 minutes. We can go ahead and get started. Thank you.
Before starting my journey at WGU, I transferred from a community college. It kind of gave me the chance to get my foot on in the door, and I didn't have as many credits to finish at WGU. So it just gave me that flexibility to be able to do my courses whenever.
Learn more now.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sydney Ware, and I have the privilege of serving as the boss list of the Mighty Mu Zeta chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated here on campus at MTSU, and I wanted to welcome you all to the Voices That Shape Change. Let me start with this. The fact that you all are here and showed up tonight matters, because in a time where it is easy to be disengaged, you made the decision to show up, to listen, to learn, and to be present in a space centered around leadership and civic responsibility. And spaces like this don't happen by accident. They happen because people are willing to put in the work to create opportunities for others to engage, learn, and grow. So I want to acknowledge the organizations that help make this event possible. Your commitment to engagement and service is what gives spaces like this meaning. And to those participating in the tabling portion, you are laying the foundation, because meaningful change does not begin on a stage. It begins with awareness, with conversation, and with individuals choosing to be informed. And I would also like to extend my gratitude to our panelists tonight, Representative Afton Bain, Representative Mike Sparks, and Representative Vincent Dixie. Your presence here this evening is significant because it demonstrates that leadership is accessible. Now, I want to be clear. Too often, young people like us are made to feel that civic engagement is something reserved for later, that their voices are not yet strong enough, or that their role is to simply observe and sit back. But the reality is, decisions are being made every single day that directly impact our lives, our education, our communities, and our opportunities. And to put that into perspective, young people make up one of the largest voting blocs in this country, yet turnout among our age group continues to lag behind past generations. At the same time, policies being decided today directly impact our education, our financial futures, and the communities that we come from. So whether we choose to engage or not, we are still living with the outcomes. So the question is not whether this matters, but it is a question of will we choose to be part of it. That is the purpose of this space, not to simply listen, but to understand, not to simply to observe, but to engage, and to recognize each person in this room has a voice that carries weight. And I've come to understand that growth does not happen from distance. It happens when you step into rooms like this, when you ask questions, when you engage in the conversation, and when you begin to see yourself not as an observer, but someone who belongs in these spaces. Be present, be engaged, and be willing to step into the conversation, because the future of our communities and the future of leadership will be shaped by those who choose to speak with intention. Thank you. Before we start tonight, I also just want to let y'all know that we are in a very civilized space, so please be respectful. Let all the panelists answer y'all questions before you follow up. And with that being said, I would like to welcome up our moderator for the night, Kayla Baker.
Thank you, Sydney. Before I get started, I just want to give a special thanks to Sydney for getting all this and putting it together. So we can all just please give Sydney Ware a hand. As he stated, my name is Caleb Baker. I'm a current brother of the undergraduate chapter here, and I just want to, before we get started, to have our panelists say a little thing about themselves, introduce themselves. So if we could please just go down the line and have our panelists introduce themselves to the audience.
Yeah, Mike Sparks out of Smyrna, 49th House District. Graduate MTSU. Went back on my second degree a couple of years ago, and have married 37 years. My wife was 15. I was 19 when we met. And love serving the General Assembly, and really appreciate the invite, and I look forward to discussion.
I'm Representative Afton Bain. I represent the House District 51, which includes downtown Nashville, East Nashville, about 60,000 voters, and I'm a licensed social worker, and I've been a community organizer for the past decade in Tennessee.
Hello. I was today years old when I found out Mike Sparks had a college degree. No, I'm just joking. So I'm Representative I'm Representative Vincent Dixie. I represent District 54 in Davidson County. And I'm also a proud member of Omega Psi Phi, so I appreciate you brothers for leading. Sydney, that was a great opening that you had. I really appreciate it. I don't know where you came up with those words, but it was amazing. So I appreciate you guys for being leaders that you are. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So we're going to just go ahead and jump straight into it with our opening question, panelists. And there's no order what you guys have to answer. Just whenever you feel as though you want to answer, you may just grab the mic and answer the question at hand. Our first answer for the night is, to start us off, what first motivated you to get involved in public service, and was there a moment where you realized this was the path for you?
Well, I'm an entrepreneur, so I've always had my own businesses. Well, not always. I started when I was about 30. I had an adult daycare, and I had adult daycare. I would try to figure out who set the reimbursements rates. And when I found out it was the government, I was like, aha, I need to be at the table. So I started going to community meetings, and at the time, a senator, she was retiring. The person in that seat that I sit in now wanted to run for Senate, so that left an opening. So I had no political experience, but I ran against 3 other people that had experience. It was a sitting city councilman and 2 other people that had that. But I worked hard, I put a team together, and I made it happen. So I want one thing that if you don't take from anything tonight is you're never going to have enough money. You're never going to have enough experience. You're never going to have enough time. You're never going to be old enough. So just do it. Just do it. Don't let anybody tell you that you are or you can't do this. You just have to take action. The one thing that I appreciate most when people come to visit my office is because they took the time out to come see me and advocate for something that they truly believe in, that means a lot to them. Because in this day and age, a lot of people sit behind these keyboards and complain. They just keyboard gangsters. They just want to just talk. I got to remember not to curse. But they like to talk stuff. But when you come up there, and if it's important enough for you to take time out of your day, then it becomes important enough to me to try to advocate for that as well.
I can go. I never wanted to be a politician or an elected official, but I was a community organizer and worked for national organizations. I was a political director for a national organization, and I like to say that Tennessee politics is like the Hotel California, which they probably don't even know the reference. It's an Eagles song in which the lyric is, you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. And I wanted to wash my hands of Tennessee politics. And then in March of 2023, there was a school shooting in Nashville. And 2 of our legislators of color crossed an arbitrary line on the House floor. And the body in which the 3 of us were there, they were expelled. And I put my life on hold for 12 days to organize the protests and marches outside of the Capitol and across the state. And there was a moment, the final night of the expulsions, I had organized the press conference, and we were waiting for them to come out and tell their story to the entire world. And I just remember a moment where I thought, I deserve to be at the legislature just as much as anyone here. And my skills as a social worker, I think, make me a unique fit because I'm a systems thinker, but I'm also always, especially in my legislative portfolio, always centering the most impacted. And so I think there's a lot of there are members of the legislature that I think come up there with different priorities, but for me, it's always been to move the needle in a state like Tennessee and to use my legislative office, which is very privileged. I represent a very, very privileged district. How do I use my district to, redistribute power across the state? And so that's, I guess that's what I do.
Right. The question was why we serve. Is that it? Okay. Well, before I do that, I want to recognize, I see a candidate running for sheriff, Kenneth Barrett. Kenneth, raise your hand. Half the job for us, I think, is just showing up, so thank you, Kenneth, for showing up. And my intern, I believe, is right here somewhere, my tissue intern, Jacob Pagel, is here. He's been probably the best interns that I've had. My story is totally unique. I'm a blue-collar guy and finished my degree late in life. I had he mentioned entrepreneur. I had my first business at 21. I had a gym in Smyrna, weightlifting place, and saved up $10,000 by just buying and selling cars. And next thing you know, my 15-year-old girlfriend, and I'm 19 at the time. I was like 21. Next thing you know, I'm getting married, and my whole life changed. but it changed for the better. I got two sons. Preston graduated here a few years ago, but my story is totally different. I just didn't really have, my last name wasn't Bain or last name wasn't Dixie. I couldn't run on their coattails or anything, but I just kept praying. I was working at Nissan in the factory, man. I just kept praying and for the Lord to lead me out of there, and He led me out. And just praying, I heard a voice just tell me to reach out to a guy. It was a guy that was a wealthy investor, and he was just a businessman, and he encouraged me to run for office. But it's challenging sometimes, because the politics can be kind of nasty, can't it? Can it? I had to forgive her because she worked against me last 2 years ago. But, it can be very difficult. But I enjoy serving because, it helps when somebody said, man, I appreciate you helping my grandmother. I appreciate you helping my son when he got that unemployment. Appreciate you getting me that $11,800 unemployment check during COVID. Appreciate you getting me that $6,800 check during COVID. Those are times that the media is never going to tell you those good stories. But I think you need to really have a servant's heart where you help people, and that's really what the job is about serving other people, helping.
Okay, thank you so much. This second question kind of piggybacks off of the first one. So, from your perspective, why should young people, especially the young college students who are in the audience today, care about what's happening at the state and local level?
Yeah, I can start. I think what's giving me hope right now in this moment is the light at the end of the tunnel of all of this is that there will be, in the next 20 years, there will be more transformative change seen in this country since the New Deal, and you all will be stewards of that. And so it's, there's a massive paradigm shift happening in this country. There's going to be a massive transfer of leadership because of the gerontocracy leaving office. So you all are going to have the opportunity. There's going to be such a vacuum of elected leadership that you all are going to have to start running at 18, 19, 20 for boards and commissions and local office. And I think more importantly, as you're in school and you're thinking about what you want to do as you graduate, and this is what I say to my social work interns, but that I need you all to understand how local government works, how state government works, how federal government works, because you're going to have to rebuild it after it falls apart, which is probably in the next 4 to 6 years. So for you all, what are those hard skill sets, right? How do you, deprivatize an entire state government? How do you, how do you usher in infrastructure projects or a universal jobs guarantee, right? Because there's so many jobs being automated, we're going to have a guaranteed jobs program at the federal and state level. And you all get to dream about that. And so I'm really excited for you all. And a lot of the work that I do in the legislature is just planting seeds so that you all can then, grow in that. I'm just using a lot of gardens and seed, metaphors. But you all can basically pick up that work and then move it forward.
Quick question. How many of you have cars and buy your own gas? Raise your hand. All right. So this is a reason why you must pay attention to politics, because what's going on nationally and globally as far as this war is impacting you right now. I have two daughters. One is 21 and one is 19. They're both in college. But until they start to understand how politics affect them, now they're more involved. Because people say, oh, I'm not involved I don't do politics. Well, if you don't do politics, politics are going to do you. So you better learn to pay attention and pick up a newspaper, read some things. Don't listen to everything that you hear on TV. Find your own perspective. Get different angles, talk to different people. Not everybody is going to agree with you, and talk to people who don't agree with you. Because the demographic between 18 and 25 if they started voting, just a quarter of the 18 to 25-year-olds started voting, it could swing any election either way. But when I talk to young people, the reason why they say they don't vote is because they don't understand the issues. So I feel like it's our responsibility to educate. How many times you heard people have registration drives? And you're like, oh, we got to get people registered to vote. You've heard that a lot, right? Guess what? We've been registering people since 1960, and ain't nothing changed. So what we have to do is get out, educate people, because nobody wants to go and push a button and realize they did the wrong thing. So I feel like she's great at mobilizing, but we have to educate. And it's those three pieces: registration, mobilization, and education. And that's what we have to do. So I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be here, but also have those conversations, because when we were growing up, people would always say, don't talk about religion and don't talk about politics. And now look where we are. Because we didn't talk about it, we have such a divide. We're more alike than we are different. But for some reason, politics has become a team sport. And it's not a team sport. Our job is to make your lives better because we're in these seats. And we forget that. So if there's one thing that I would ask you to take away is, one, try to read a little bit more. Don't get all your news from Instagram. Don't get it all from TikTok. Just read a newspaper. I know that sounds crazy, but you can get a newspaper on your phone now. Just subscribe. That ain't like Tennessee, it's like $1 a week or something like that. So just please, just educate yourselves. And if you have questions, seek out a mentor. Sydney sought me out, and he has stayed in touch. He's been on me. He makes me stay on top of my game. And so apparently you help. It's a symbiotic relationship. We help each other. So seek out a mentor, find someone you can talk to, but also read and talk to each other. Y'all have to help educate each other. Thank you.
What he's saying is real. I just want to go back to the founders of Omegas. Edgar, Amos Love, Oscar James Cooper, Frank Coleman. Those guys kind of started, they had vision, man. They made it happen. They reached out to Ernest Just, who was the faculty advisor, if I'm right on this. You got to reach out. He mentioned mentorships. I run a resolution last year, and one of the issues I've kind of led on is the fatherless issue and lack of mentors, and it's the issue I care about. I had an assistant at L.A., young African-American out of Memphis, text me after his internship, just like Jacob, and I really didn't know the young man because he would come in and play chess with my assistant, and he texted me asking for advice for his career. This guy's out of Memphis, and I said, well, I guess you're going to move back to Memphis. Anybody from Memphis in here? Okay. He said, I don't want to go back to Memphis. I don't know if y'all are going back to Memphis. And he just texted me, I don't want to go back to Memphis. And I said, I'll tell you what, just come in and hang out with me. I didn't know what to do for him. I said, man, I got my radio show and I got Rotary Club. I said, just come in and hang out with me. And I was presenting an award to my Kurdish. I got some Kurdish friends. And Kurdish, they're just the sweetest people, the Kurds are. And I had a surprise proclamation. And this young man's on the radio with me. They may not like this, but he opens up a newspaper. He's a young guy out of Memphis now, graduated TSU. He opens up a newspaper. Front page of the newspaper was his face on TSU newspaper, and it said, why I voted for Donald Trump. I was like, you voted for Donald Trump? I remember this about 7 years ago. He goes, yeah. I said, man, how much persecution do you face? He says, man, I explained my position. Everybody's good with it. That young man, I said, I tell you what, I said, in fact, the Speaker of the House called me. I said, hey, let's get this guy hired. He goes, man, you got to get yourself elected. I went through a tough election, man. I had big money come against me, City Hall come against me. It was me and a young African-American out of Memphis. We had City Hall come against us. Give God the glory for it. We still won. And I wondered what it'd be like to have young African-American as my campaign manager. Wonder what that'd be like. Man, everybody loved this guy. They just loved him. In fact, I know Dixie won't be surprised. They liked him better than they did me. I'm just being honest, man. They all loved him. But he kind of I could become his mentor, but he's now with Office of the Courts, making big money. Now he's in law school, doing great. The Nashville School of Law featured him, and man, he's a cool young cat, I'm telling you. And he mentions me in the newsletter. He mentions me as a father figure. And he mentions AI, like Afton just mentioned. I was talking about AI a few years back. But the power of a mentor, this is an award. I don't want to get mad at me now. It's from the Alphas. Any Alphas in here? No. It's from the Alphas. Okay. Nobody ever believes I got an award from the Alphas. Y'all get a picture. Good picture back row back there. Get a good picture. Anyways, young Brandon Woodruff, he was the Hellraiser protester here. Anybody know Brandon? He was Hellraiser. I got up here, we were talking about history. He wanted to know more. He said, I was talking about William Wilberforce, who freed slaves in Great Britain in 30 years before America did. Talked about John Newton writing Amazing Grace, which was my bill, made the official hymn. Talked about Samson Keeble, first black lawmaker, come from my district. A lot of people don't know this stuff. This young man wanted to know more. He wasn't mad because I'm a Republican. He wasn't mad this, that. He come up, he said, man, can I be your intern? It was the craziest thing. And it was during all the like protest kind of stuff. I said, man, let me check on this, you know. And he come up to my office, and all the young ladies love this guy, Brandon Woodruff. And I said, look, man, if you're going to be a hellraiser, and this is some good advice for some of you guys, if you're going to be a hellraiser, find something good to raise hell about. Find a good cause to raise hell about. Raise hell about the predatory lending out here, 400%, that's raping and pillaging the black community. Raise hell about that issue when everybody's silent. I'm the only one that had a bill on that thing this year. You go back and watch the video. I went after a guy here in Murfreesboro. Go to YouTube, type in Miss Helen Predatory Lending. African-American lady in her 60s. Dude offers her 11% interest rate. You know what it was? It was 11% a month. He suckered her. Remember, my background's a car business. And I told that guy, I said, dude, I'm going to cost you 10 grand worth of bad press. He's trying to repo her car, man. Her sister was in the car battling cancer, only had a few months to live. There's a lot of silence out there in this world. That's a good issue to raise hell about. And everybody's quiet about it, man. It's all a bunch of, I don't want to use profanity up here, but I don't want to use it. I got to sit on the radio the other day. I got in trouble for saying on the radio. But it's just sad that there's nobody with voices. That ain't a Republican or Democrat issue. So raise hell about that. Watch that video. You'll be pissed when you see it. Miss Helen Predatory Lending. And I sold 2,000 cars. I sold the first car on the internet, had the first .com car company. That's a fact. The Business Journal covered it nationwide. I was good at cars. I never done people that way. But this whole business model, I'll tell you who it is, at Tennessee Title Pond, right over at Jackson Heights Plaza. I think he's a piece of crap. But you watch the video. I said, dude, I'm going to cost you 10 grand worth of bad press. The Lord lined it up. But that's an issue worth raising hell about. You know, so don't let the media divide us. There's a lot more. Me and you young cats here, we got a whole lot more in common than we don't have in common, I promise you. But get involved, find some good mentors. My mentor was just like Donald Trump. He was the wealthiest guy in Smyrna, and I was never his yes man. He said, that's the problem with Mike Sparks. He said, you donate to him, they do the vote against you. That's a compliment to me, because I'm not going to be bought. Thank y'all.
Well, listen, I'm going to tell you the truth. Mike Sparks is crazy. But I respect him because he believes what he believes. Now, we don't agree. I probably I would say 95% of stuff we don't agree on. But he believes what he believes, and I can respect that. But the problem that I have in our caucus is we have what I like to call the cowards. They know better, but they vote for it anyway. And that's the problem that I have when people let other people influence them and they don't think for themselves. And I think that's the issue that we have that's going on right now. I know we keep going on and talking, but just don't let Mike go first.
All right, thank you so much. So moving on to our third question of the evening. For students who feel like their voices aren't heard or don't know where to start, essentially, with the political standpoint, what are practical ways that they can begin engaging in the civic process?
Yeah, there's lots of ways. I mean, some of you are interns through MTSU with the Tennessee General Assembly. A lot of us have our own internship programs. For me, I have something in the summer where I'm in a very progressive Democratic gerrymandered district, and I use the opportunity to then train young people as to how to run campaigns. And so we'll be launching that program. Also, like, for whatever cause you care about, you can always, show up at a protest. For me, I always wanted to know who was organizing the thing that I was going to. And then I found the organizer and I said, hey, can I take you out to coffee? I'd love to learn more. What's the organization? How does it work? And so finding things that you're interested in and then finding the groups that organize around them is a wonderful, and then also this year, you're gonna have so many elections. So, just choose one, find a candidate that you care about, and then ask if there's lots of candidates here, ask if there are internship opportunities, if there's paid opportunities. I have to shout out my two field folks, Jonathan and Kessler, who worked on the congressional campaign. They knocked tons of doors, but ran also just an incredible field program. And Jonathan's still at MTSU. So there are lots. Oh yeah. Well, not the whole race, but no, that's okay. But the whole there are lots of opportunities for young people this year, plugging into campaign. So just find a candidate you care about. What are the issues that they care about? Get behind them. Ask if there are paid or unpaid opportunities. And then be thinking about, like I said, the skills, right? Like, do you know how to run canvases, right? Which can be helpful for not only elections, but also say you're doing, maybe census counting in a few years, right? So just figuring out how you can leverage elections this year to plug in.
I would say, as far as find an issue that you care about. And a lot of times, the people say, well, you got to go talk it out. But sometimes you have to raise a little hell. And I'm pretty much a soft-spoken person most of the time. But when we're on the House floor, and Mike can attest to this, there's certain people that when you're on the House floor, no matter how loud or how soft your voice is, you can hear the crowd go down because they know you have something to say. That's because they know that I'm not going to get up on every issue and talk about everything, but when I get up and talk, it's something that I'm passionate about. And I think that, especially in this day and age with you guys, you have the advent of social media where if something's wrong, let's say, for instance, and I'm just going to throw this out there, if there was a naming of a building that you didn't like, or there's a name of a building that you did, whatever, you can really put something out and say, hey, we're going to meet at this building and such, and then go from there. But sometimes you have to speak out. But if you don't speak up and speak out, then nothing will ever happen. Nobody ever says, man, I have too much power. I'm going to give some away. You got to take it. And you have to get into that mentality that I want to get what I want. And sometimes people say no. And I always tell my daughters, no doesn't necessarily mean no. It just means you need to find another way to ask it. And some things in life you can't take no for an answer for. And you have to have that. And I won't go to my old man. You got to have a little dog in you and go get it. And you can't just accept what's in front of you sometimes. And like even just being here it's the start of that process to be here. And like I say, most of us, we're very accessible. And I promise if you reach out to us, we'll probably reach back to you. Like I said, we don't have to agree politically, but if there's a goal that I can help you reach, I'll definitely do it because that's what it's about. How do you help people get to a better situation in life? We should be focusing on making sure people got enough money to pay their bills, roof over their head, enough food to eat, and if they get sick, to go see a doctor. Then we can fight over some other things, but we have to take care of people's basic needs. And if I want you to find something that you believe in, it doesn't matter what it is. It can be something that you feel is happening on your campus and that you want to change. That's where the start starts. It starts with you and within.
I just wanted to add one more thing, shadowing. So my office offers shadowing. You come in and you experience a day in the legislature, but also just thinking about what professions you all want. I'm sure you have internships, but and I'm sure, Representative Dixie would also, and Representative Sparks would love this, but it's like, what do you think you want to do when you grow up? And maybe shadow that person, and then you discover oh, I really don't like any of this, right? But I really I love kind of on the ground, in time training. And so reaching out to people that you find interesting and or professions that you seek to potentially have as you get older, and reaching out and shadowing under those individuals.
How many of y'all taking the Briggs-Myers? Some call it the Myers-Briggs personality profile. Y'all taking that? I think there's a lot of truth to that thing. I've taken this thing like 8 times, and mine it's called Campaigner. I mean, that's the personality profile type, Campaigner. But it says, and it also says champion, like champion an issue, and everything it says you'd be good at, like writing. I've wrote 3 books. It says sales, had car business. It mentions radio. I do a radio program. It mentions everything, and it even mentions politics. But it also says you wouldn't be good at the military, and you wouldn't be good at police, because I don't like following order, Kenneth Barrett. That's why I used to butt heads with your sheriff all the time back in the day. But as a person of faith, how many of y'all are believers, persons of faith? I'm telling you, man, the Bible says seeking God's the beginning of all wisdom. Don't say some wisdom, a little wisdom, all wisdom. And I tell you, I was so miserable as a young man working at Nissan. Any of y'all ever worked in a factory? The factory work's hard work, man. Kenneth, you never worked in no factory. Oh, you did? Okay. But a factory, anybody ever worked fast food like Wendy's or McDonald's? All right. You worked but it's like that, and you're doing it all the time. I had to hear a buzzer tell me to go to work. I just, go to the bathroom and all, and I just, like I said, I kept praying. And I I would volunteer. I would volunteer up front at Nissan, and anytime I could be at a conference table, I would be there. I'd volunteer for the civic engagement community. I'd volunteer for any other committees they'd offer. I was there because I always said one day I'm gonna be out of this factory. I just felt it in my spirit, and then my spirit said, "Call Boss Spivey," and the Lord just worked it all out. But he said, "Man, I'm the only one." He told the guy, he said, "Man, Mike Sparks the only one ever done that. Just called me up." This guy was a powerful man. I was with the guy when he died. He was paralyzed. He owned Starbucks. He developed all the Target, all the hotels in Smyrna. He sold every one of them hotel sites. Logan's, that was his site. He owned the Chevy dealership, owned the movie theater site, all that in Smyrna. I named that before he died. And he was like an uncle to me, but I was never his yes man. But the problem with Bob, and I'm not trying to put this man down because I appreciate the Lord used him. Bob was almost like two business. You can't just be all business all the time. You got to leave room for the next person. Like my car business, Dave Ramsey was one of my customers, and he texts me, he emails me, he says, well, also called me, he said, "Mike, I always hear you the man for car deals." I was good at cars. Told you so. The first car on the internet was a red Jag convertible, and I was 28 years old, and I was scared to death because that was $18,000. That'd be like 50 grand today. I don't like any debt. And I went over and I prayed over that car. Prayed over, and I said, "Lord, help me sell this car." Back then, many people didn't have computers, believe it or not. And I thought the dealer had it. He couldn't sell it. He had it for a year, couldn't sell it. And I thought, what is he not doing? He ain't marketing his car right. So I found a little old website. There wasn't no Facebook, wasn't no Craigslist, wasn't no eBay back in that day. And I sold it in 19 days. I made $4 grand on that car. $4 grand. That's double what I made at Nissan. It's 2 months' salary at Nissan. That's what encouraged me. Then I had a mentor, Dan Miller, who was Dave Ramsey's best friend, that said, "Man, you need to leave Nissan, follow your dreams, follow your passion." But I had 2 kids at home. I had a wife and kids I had to feed. But I'm telling you, like Dixie just said, find you good mentors, man. Even if it's somebody that, I'm thinking somebody here, John Floyd. Y'all, and he's a successful builder. Y'all's fraternity ought to invite John Floyd out, man. And he worked in a grocery store, multi-millionaire a day. Find some of these folks, and I'm telling you, man, they'll meet with you. Very few, most people are good folks once you get down to meet them, but it's like Marvin, that internship. You know, I've got the record for getting interns hired, by the way. No one's beat my record. Maybe John Bragg 40 years ago did, but I'm telling you, man, that's the key. Get to know people, because it ain't about money. It ain't about good looks. I mean, Afton's got the looks, you know. I mean, it's helped her. That's the only reason gets elected all the time. But I'm telling you, man, find good mentors, and it'll change your life.
All right, moving on to our last question of the evening before we open the floor up to any questions that they want to ask. What decisions being made right now do you think will have the biggest impact on young people in the next 5 to 10 years? So what decisions that are being made currently, right now in the world, do you think will have the biggest impact on the young people, college students within this room, in the next 5 to 10 years?
I mean, not to be dramatic, and I'm sure Representative Sparks would disagree, but I mean, we are truly in a time of great transformation, and the next few years, I mean, we are in an affordability crisis. Like our generations, I'm an elder millennial, but we were told by our parents that if you worked hard, if you went to school, you could afford a slice of the American dream, and that's no longer true. And you all are entering a job market that is automated, that is run by tech oligarchs, that in which we haven't raised the minimum wage, and so you all are going to be on the receiving end of a lot of just this chaos of really, I would say bad policies. But the good thing is, I think there's going to be a major pendulum that swings, and it's going to be a response to the lack of progress in this state. And so I'm hoping within the next 10 years that you all will be able to afford houses, that you all will graduate without student debt, and especially if you go to graduate school for a professional degree, that you won't have debt. right? That you'll have a job. It might not be being an influencer, but perhaps it's, rebuilding bridges for the state of Tennessee, because we have a $73 billion backlog, and we're going to need a lot of young people to enroll in programs that rebuild our infrastructure, right? So I just think the possibilities are endless, even though, it's going to feel like it isn't. I do think that you all are going to enter in the next 10 years. There's going to be lots of possibilities. But unfortunately right now, like, life is very hard for you all. And I'm sorry that we've left this country in this state in a way that feels almost unsurvivable. But I do think that you all have the agency, and hopefully you'll develop the skills to, I don't know, to cultivate prosperity for you all, and I think in future generations.
I think one of the biggest issues is we're going to have to get back to a point of caring about each other, about being each other's brothers, being my brother's keeper. Because if we continue down this road where it's so divisive, and if someone tells me that they voted for this person, or if they tell me they voted for that person, you automatically have an idea about that person. And it may not be true, but you automatically think that, oh, that's a bad person. He believes this, or he believes that. We have to get back to a place of where we can disagree, but agree to disagree. And it's okay. But we have to do it in a way that's respectful. And I think that we, as role models, have to lead that way and show and be respectful. We can't get up here calling each other's names, and we can't do that. We can't do that. We have to respect everybody, respect their minds, respect their abilities, and we have to do that. And I think if we don't do that, we're going to be in a world of trouble in 10 years. Because right now we're pushing the envelope where we're on an edge, we're on a cliff right now, and we have to make a decision of what kind of country do we want to be, what kind of people do we want to be. And as black people, we're always the most forgiving people. You hit me on this cheek, we'll turn the cheek. You got to stop that. You have to plant your feet in the ground sometime, but we have to fight for what's right. And we need people that are our allies, that when they say that they're our allies, they have to step up and fight for us and fight with us for what's right too. You can't do for what's right for you. You got to do what's right for everybody. And so we have to hold our allies, I know we've heard that term a lot, we have to hold our allies accountable with us too. Black people, we cannot always run to the fight. Some fights aren't ours. But we have to make sure that we fight together. And that's the only way we're going to make this country, this state, this city, this university the best that it can be, is if we do it together. So we need to work together.
Dixie mentioned forgiveness. Forgiveness is a powerful tool. We don't think about forgiveness. When I was a young cat, y'all's age, I didn't want to forgive nobody. I had a kind of a hard heart. But I'm telling you, man, forgiveness has been my key. It's been my key. Every one of y'all got somebody that made you mad. I seen some drama about 2 weeks ago in the General Assembly. There's some drama, man. You remember the drama? Seen a lot of drama. And sometimes you just got to forgive. I mean, if I was going to harbor bitterness, everybody worked against me, City Hall, I had the governor come against me. I don't think anybody's had more bad press than me. They put me on the front page, tried to hate on me. And it was the day of election. But I jumped 20 percentage points. It was so cool. But when the governor come against it was Haslam people come against it, because I called out some white-collar BS. It was Jones-Lang LaSalle. It's corruption. I think it's corruption. I also asked for the Commissioner of Education to step down. But 66 school superintendents signed a document, no confidence. Well, I promise you, if the Sheriff's Department had half the deputies voted no confidence in the sheriff's going to have to go. So I signed it. Man, next thing you know, my next election, all these TV spots. I was sitting with my wife. All of a sudden, it's like Mike Sparks voted for 14 tax increases, and I was like, "What the heck is this?" I knew who it was. People were like, "How do you know this?" I said, "Man, the Lord's just telling me." And I went in front of the guy, and I took a quarter. I asked her if he had a quarter. John ain't got a quarter on me, and because I'd already called out to Jones-Lang LaSalle, and I put a quarter on his desk, and I spun it like that, and it spun. And I said, "Brother, this is what I got out of pocket." My opponent had $100 grand. Republican Party didn't think I could win. They said, "I ain't never seen anybody win get outspent 5-1." I said, "Well, this brother's going to do it." I put my foot up on the table. I had a big old giant hole in my shoe. And the reason I had that hole in my shoe was I was working my butt off, canvassing neighborhood, knocking on doors, My opponent was a good guy. I like my opponent. Named a bridge after him. Kent Coleman was his name. Fine fella. He's now deceased. Named a bridge after him in Smyrna, right there by Karen's Custard. And I took him to lunch after I won. People thought I was crazy. Keith, you know, a couple of them guys, they thought I was crazy. I wouldn't take him to lunch. Kent was a real gentleman. We met at City Cafe, and I told this guy, I said, man, how come nobody seems to care about the drug problem? I've always kind of cared about drug problem. I lost a brother about 5 years ago to addiction. I had to go identify his body in the ER. And but my other brother was a top FBI agent in the nation at Quantico. He graduated here. He's undercover. He'd be mad at me bragging on him right now. But that stuff's always been important to me, addiction in those areas. That's why I used to fight with the sheriff, because I didn't think the sheriff cared. And the mayor at the time, she said, Commissioner, I used to be a county commissioner, she said, you got to learn to slow down and pick your battles. Because I was fighting with the sheriff and other people. I was fighting with a lot of people. I said, but there's so much that needs to be fought for. You know, some of y'all are passionate like that. You want to take on the world. She said, but you got to slow down and pick your battles. You got to pick three. Pick three and fight for them. But going back on home affordability, here's the BS that I often see. This ain't a Democrat-Republican issue. I had a home affordability resolution, task force study, I don't know if y'all remember, and I was just talking about a study, because Proverbs says there's wisdom in the multitude of counselors. I bought my first home at 22. The reason I bought my first home is because I had a father in my life. I had a hot rod 68 Camaro back in the day, and I had paid it off when I was about 19, 20, but my dad put the money up. I sold that asset. That was an asset. Sold it to buy that home. Now that home's our business across from Nissan. I said, one day this is going to be commercial. It's probably worth about $600,000. I paid $60,000 for it. But what the difference was, I had a dad in my life. If you don't have a father, find some good mentors. I'm telling you, there's older guys out there that'll take you, that'll help you. Like Marvin, I'm telling you, man, you being African American is a plus. Don't ever think that's a negative. And it's a plus. Everybody loved this guy. And he'd be here at night, but he's in law school. But the home affordability, when I had that task force study, let me tell you the BS that goes on. And this ain't a Republican-Democrat issue. I had taxpayer-funded lobbyists fighting me. Taxpayer-funded lobbyists. And I knew what was going on because I'd already run a task force study on childhood sexual abuse, run that and the statute of limitations where you can go back and prosecute. That was one of my bills. And I stopped the committee, and I just said, no, here's what's going on. You got these taxpayer-funded lobbyists that got to every one of you members up here and trying to kill my bill. And I went off, which I'm not recommending doing that because that's not really the way to function. But I had no card. I had no card to play. I had no leverage. So all I did was just go off. And what they did, the committee, it got them shook up. And I said, this is one of the key issues in our community is home affordability and mental health as well, you know. And I used the power of shame. I just shamed them, kind of like what you try to do sometimes on us. Use the power of shame. And they said, will you roll this bill for a week? Roll the bill for a week. And I come back, and I was watching the eye contact. I said, your government's broken. Guy come up, didn't like what I said, but he was nice about it. I said, brother, I've been around this a long time. If your government ain't broken, it's on life support. And it is scary when our country is $37 trillion in debt, and you students are carrying debt about $1.8 trillion. We can do better. We can do better. But I'm telling you, have a conversation. Be willing to engage with people that you don't like. And I'll finish it with this. I got invited to this spoken word. Y'all know what spoken word is? You girls know what spoken word is? You never heard of it? Okay. Spoken word. This guy told me, he says, hey, man, he said, there's a bunch of liberals here, but you're going to get along with them. And I heard a girl up there. It was kind of neat. I'm sitting there. I was kind of uncomfortable at this art gallery. And this girl gets up, and she started talking about counting sunrises. And I thought about it. She journaled counting sunrises. Mental health's a serious issue. Journaling can help with mental health. And every day she talked about what she was going through that day, count sunrises. And I thought, you know what? I've never taken the time in my life to watch a sunrise. I know that sounds crazy, but I thought, I've never taken the time to just chill and just watch a sunrise. And I got that she counted like 240-something days. But take care of your mental health as well, because ain't y'all dealing with some stress? With school, working. Y'all are dealing with more stress than we are. than we are. You got to have hope. Hope is a real thing, and you, there is hope. Your generation, and one of y'all said that we've kind of left y'all in a bad position, and I agree. So a lot of it's corporate greed, just to be honest with you. A lot of issues are corporations, BlackRock and all that stuff, buying up rental houses. That's wrong, and something needs to be done about it.
Thank you so much for answering the questions that we're giving you tonight. Can we please have a hand for our panelists? So what we would like to do now is open the floor to any questions that the audience may have. I do remind you all to keep it respectful when you ask questions, not to try to cage or box any questions you have, but just keep it in a respectable manner. But if anyone has any questions, we have a mic up here. I'll go around the room and we can get started. So just raise your hand and we can go from there.
Hello. Let me pull up my question. Student organizations play a key role in expanding voter access on college campuses. If the SAVE Act introduces new barriers to registration, how can these groups adapt to ensure students, particularly those who have never voted before, can still fully participate in the democratic process?
It's very tough to vote as a student in the state of Tennessee. They've really limited your ability, especially if you live out of state, to not vote in our elections. They have been removing college campuses from the polling locations, and so it's really tough. And I think for you all, like I said, now is the time of imagination. Thinking about what would make voting access easier. And just this year, we had the Tennessee High School Democrats filed and passed a bill to provide a civic in-service holiday where students get to engage in a civic activity during the year, and it's not counted against them. And so, we're always open to hear how we can make things better for you all. I mean, you have the lived experience to inform how we legislate. But I will say this is a very tough area and state to be voting in. And so, we're open to however we can help.
I would suggest, first of all, I think that it's crazy that you can't use your student ID as identification to vote because it's coming from a state-accredited university, and it's truly a government ID. But I think that we have to also consider about registering to vote to where you can think about it. When you're in school, you live here for 8, 9 months out of a year, really 10 months out of a year. So Murfreesboro is your home, and you should have some sort of say-so in what goes on here. But you can't have say-so if you don't educate yourself on the issues and don't know who to vote for locally or statewide. So I would suggest that hopefully you get with your state representatives, get with us, and see how we can advocate for using the student IDs, because I think that's one of the biggest things that we need to do, because they understand. People that don't want you to vote, they understand that keeping this huge demographic that I said before between 18 and 25 from voting, that they know that they can swing an election either side, either way. Nobody knows which way it's going to go, but at least give people a chance to have that vote. And if somebody is trying to keep you from doing something, there's probably a reason why. So just keep fighting for that, but I think there's an opportunity for us to try to expand on that access and having voting locations on campuses. We have to. I think that's part of this, the fabric of America is the civic process. And I've voted ever since I was 18 in every election. My grandmother, my mother used to take me to the polling places, and I did the same thing with my daughters while they were coming up. And as soon as they turned 18, I made sure that they were able to vote. And people think voting is a privilege. It's not a privilege, it's a right. And that people died for that right, for us to have that. So don't take it lightly and say my vote doesn't count. People literally lost their lives for us to have this right. Don't abuse it. Use it. Okay?
Well, to me, if who in here feels like they can't vote in the primary? I mean, surely everybody's registered to vote. we've got 15 days to vote early voting. I think there's, and I run the bill years ago, the pilot project where you can vote at different precincts. I think there's ample time to be able to get out there and vote. I know people are busy; they work a lot. School, I think the accessibility is pretty easy. So I finally have an opportunity to disagree with y'all. But you need to make it a priority. I mean, it's kind of like if you want a Starbucks cup of coffee, you're going to go get it. If you want to vote, you can make it happen. If you want to go to the gym, you can make it happen. So I wouldn't take voting lightly. It's my friend got killed in Iraq. I trained him at Nissan. Got the road named after him. If you ever go by Nissan, Sergeant Asbury Hahn Way. I trained him. He was about 26. I was about 30. And God had a plan. His son hangs out with me a little bit. And he bought a truck from me. My mother happened to pray with this guy. And it plays on my mind because we did the same job. And that dude gets blown out of a Humvee in Iraq for what? And then I go to the state capitol. But things kind of manifest itself where I'm kind of that boy's mentor, and he don't remember his daddy, sadly. But if you ever drive by there, you'll see Sergeant Asbury Hahn Way, and the boy inherited the truck I sold him because his grandfather gave it to him. But like Vincent said, we've got to take this seriously and get out there and support the candidates you believe in. And if somebody doesn't return your call, I wouldn't vote for the person. That's Republican or Democrat. And I think these folks are going to return your call, but that goes for Republicans too. Call them as well.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Kelly Hill. I had a question for the representatives. I wanted to know, I know that right now in the state legislature, there's being discussed a bill that's where it's going to be a statewide requirement for law enforcement departments to cooperate with the 287G. This is an issue that's of extreme concern to me, not only because it's a massive federal overreach as well as terrible for all the immigrant communities. I want to share my also a personal story. My mom, when she got her citizenship this past last summer, we were able to get her citizenship. She had been arrested a couple of months before because she has a mental illness, actually, and she was arrested on campus at my old college campus for having a mental illness, trespassing, and we were able to get that all expunged. Whenever she went to get her citizenship certificate, they asked if you'd been arrested before, and so we were really praying and hoping that she would be able to get that. We did get that. However, the document that she got when she got her certificate did not have the Walgreens passport photo that we had paid for and sent in to immigration, the citizenship office. It had her mugshot from jail. Okay, so she is a U.S. citizen, mother to 4 daughters who are successful American citizens, former wife to a Marine. She has a citizenship certificate that has a mugshot from her jail when she was mentally ill. I want to know what you all think about this 287G agreement, considering that the ICE is under the same federal agency as the Citizenship Service that gave my mother this mugshot on her certificate. And I'm really curious also what Representative Sparks is going to do related to this issue, because I really have a huge concern about federal overreach and the fact that this federal agency gave my mom this terrible gift on the day that was supposed to be a really great celebration for us.
Well, I can start. I want to say thank you for being here and sharing your story. And, we are living through unprecedented horrors. This week I had to attend an immigration hearing from a constituent who was afraid of getting picked up by ICE as she was heading in to her asylum appointment. And we are witnessing just the utter disillusion of the balance of any of our powers, both federal and state, and they are seamlessly being blended together in a way that in which there is no accountability. With regard to 287G, as an organizer, I work to to end a lot of those programs prior to January of 2025. There were 3 287G programs in the state of Tennessee. Now there's almost, I want to say, 50. So we've seen the proliferation. And for those of you who don't know, 287G is when sheriff's offices can work are basically deputized ICE agents without little accountability nor any training. And it just blurs the lines of where there is no due process, right? Because if you're getting picked up for a headlight being out by a sheriff or a state trooper or someone from the sheriff's office, and then immediately, you are thrown into a car and then sent to jail and never to be seen again because you're in this immigration pipeline that ships you to Louisiana. And I've heard lots of horror stories like yours as to what's happening. So, unfortunately, Tennessee is at the epicenter of this fight. Stephen Miller is actively working with Republican leadership, not Mike Sparks, but Republican leadership, to pass a slate of these bills. And I will say that, this is a moment of being very vocal about what is happening and being fearless and standing up for your neighbors because they're coming for immigrants. First they came for immigrants, and then they're coming for you next. And so I've been very vocal, trying to connect the dots between the overreach of federal immigration and the other fights in terms of passing a bill to create a secret police force in the state of Tennessee. These things are all connected, and unfortunately, you all are in a state and in a year where things are very bad. And so just know that, at least for me, and I'll pass it to Representative Dixie, but there are those of us that are working with immigration groups and attorneys to not only try to fight individual cases, ensuring that there is coverage and due process for these individuals that have been on the receiving end of this, but to also figure out how do we leverage what is going on right now to build a coalition that could counter the authoritarianism that we are enduring.
Well, how many people their parents are from another country in here? There's a couple. Well, I'm half immigrant. My mother was from Scotland. Donald Trump, ironically, his mom was from Scotland. I looked it up. I think they're about 300 miles away. My mother came over legally. She never wanted to go back. And I'd ask her, Mom, I got to visit Scotland. You ever want to go back? No. She loved this country. It goes back to having a conversation. It's a federal issue, but here's what's sad. I don't see the conversation. When you look at the numbers on any issue, I look at the numbers. She said we're 78 billion, and with the backlog of TDOT, some say 38 billion. It's an issue. It's a numbers issue. But if you look at the immigration, it's like I personally think there should be a pathway to citizenship somehow. I had some young immigrant students in my office. Well, a lot of them have kind of come by. Y'all must have told them to come by or something, because I've got a lot of people who've been come by my office. And I said, what do y'all want to do? Young Latinos, they're from Honduras, El Salvador, Mexico. About 4 of them said nursing. And I thought, man, that's good, because we need some nurses, We need some correctional officers. We're behind on everything. Bus drivers, everything else. But I think it goes back to engagement. I don't think people need to be like Antifa, like they did in front of my house, scaring my wife and my neighbors about 6 or 7 years ago at 3 in the morning. Not one person called my office. Not one person emailed me. I don't know who sent them there to terrorize my family, but that's not the way to get things done. Just like that young protester that gave me this award, he wanted to know more. Have that discussion with your lawmakers. I'll be honest with you. There's some times I got teary-eyed. I shouldn't even tell you this. That because we're so blessed to live in this country, we take our freedoms for granted, man. I mean, look at whether it's Israel or Gaza or Iran, we take our freedoms for granted. There's people dying to get in this country. I wrote a story about it the other day. I've got a newspaper, I forgot to tell you. Tennessee Ledger, y'all welcome to check it out. People are dying to get in this country. I don't know what's going to happen because I don't know. I wish I had some answers, but I can tell you this. I don't know anybody that's got an answer. Not one person that's got an answer right now. So the conversation needs to be there, but sadly, the conversation isn't there.
So with the 280G, to get back to your question, The 287G program, it's basically becoming a show me your papers program. And it's almost like they're criminalizing people who aren't criminals. And I own a bail bonding company. That's what I do for a living. I own a bail bonding company. So I've seen what happens once people get arrested for something minor. Like I say, it could be a broken headlight. It could be anything. And this is criminalizing people and putting it in, and I just don't understand why we have so many immigration. And it's what we do agree with Representative Sparks. The immigration system is broken. It is very broken. And we need people to have a pathway to citizenship that is more efficient and is less costly, because there's an issue there. But I think and I want to kind of use his words against him. He said it's a federal program, but they implemented it in the states. And that is something that we should not be involving in. I think, again, we need to go back and help our brothers and sisters to become self-sufficient so that they can move on to become better citizens. The issue that I have with the immigration, that they're attacking people who don't deserve to be attacked. They say we're losing jobs. I would beg of you, any of you, and Mike Sparks, to any time, just find one time that a black person or a white person lost on the accounting manager job to somebody named Juan. It doesn't happen. So we create these narratives that these people are bad because they came here looking for a better way of life. Most people are tax-paying citizens. They just need a chance to become a citizen. Because just imagine if your life was so bad somewhere else, the only way you thought that you could survive was to go somewhere where you didn't even speak the language or know anybody. And you were willing to risk your life to do that. And when you get here, people demonize you for wanting better for you and your family. So I think that we have to take this issue seriously when it comes to 287G. It's not a political issue. This is a human issue. And we have to fight back against that. And we just passed the law. Well, it's about to pass because it's going to with Johnny Garrett carrying it, the 287G thing where they're going to force sheriff's departments to participate in this. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it's going to overcrowd our jails. And when you start picking on immigrants, you know what they do? They don't go to school. They don't go get the health care they need. They don't go to work. So it affects every part of our economy because they're attacking. Because people don't want to go to the hospitals because they're afraid something may happen. And if they get sick, guess what? That still puts a strain on our healthcare system and our economy. So everything is interconnected. So we better learn how to work with each other to make it better for everybody else. We're all going to fail. Next question. Who's next?
And I'm so sorry, I have to go, so just thank you so much for having me, and I'll leave you to it.
Let me say something real quick that y'all could take on. You know, the out-of-state tuition, I don't know if y'all know about out-of-state tuition. You know, the immigrant children be charged triple for education. Y'all familiar with that? Well, I voted against it. It shocked a lot of people. But the way I looked at it, like Vincent's talking about, I looked at it, why are we charging people triple for education? We don't charge people triple for a Big Mac. We don't charge them triple because they're a different color. We don't charge them triple for nothing else. To me, it was a simple economic issue. Now, my party was tripping out, but I tell you what, I prayed about it, man. That's what I'm talking about, the power of prayer. I met with those students, man. This was about 8 years ago, 10 years ago. And I'm going to be honest with you. They got me. I was trying to keep it together. They had me in a kind of a hot seat. Everybody was circling around me at Smyrna High School, and a little boy tells me, he says, Representative Sparks, I'll make you proud. I want to go in the military. Another girl will say, you know, my mom cleans houses. She can't afford. They get charged triple for college now. Triple. Okay. I just don't see it. You know, I didn't do that when I sold 2,000 cars. I didn't charge nobody triple. I was good to everybody. But that's an economic issue. That's an issue that students could get involved in. Y'all have a lot more power together if you pinpoint, like that predatory lending. Get involved in that kind of stuff right there, folks. Y'all can make a difference on that.
is an alternative to help undocumented kids to get an education in this state without abusing taxpayer money. I completely understand that people have a right to know what their money goes to, but at the same time we have to have empathy for the minorities.
I wholeheartedly agree. If you don't, everyone deserves an opportunity to have an education, a free, good education. If you take the kids out of school, what's the purpose of denying a third grader an education just because his parents are immigrants? What is he going to do? If he's not in school, what is he going to do? What happens is you put people into survival mode. And when once people get into survival mode, people are going to do whatever they have to do to survive. And so that bill, the things that we're doing, attacking them right now, that is absolutely ridiculous that we're doing that. Because think about it. I don't know where you are, but if let's say if you're under 18 and you live in Murfreesboro, but your mom says, all right, well, we're going to move to Brentwood, Tennessee. You don't have a choice. You have to move. So why are we punishing the child for something that the parents are doing? Or because a choice they have to make because they want to better their family and put them in a better school system or in a house or make sure they have better housing. That's an issue. And I think that you hit the nail on the head. Why are we demonizing black and brown kids? Well, brown kids at this point, Hispanics and Latinas. That is absolutely ridiculous because there is no alternative to that. And the only alternative is to build more jails because that's what's going to happen. They're going to go out and they're going to have to do what they have to do to survive.
Well, it just goes back to that build. You know, I know it sounds crazy to some of y'all, but I prayed about it. My wife heard me. Remember, this has been about 8 years ago, and my wife knew I was awake at night laying in the bed. She said, what's wrong? I said, I'm thinking about them kids. Think about them kids, like Vincent said. They didn't decide to move up here. I mean, their parents brought them up, and I text John Hood, who was the liaison to MTSU. I said, what's your vote count? Because if they got the votes, I just abstain, don't vote for it. But I was a little worried about it, you know. And then I called another girl that's with the department. She was one up the other day. She was handing out the candy bars. Forgot her name. Brunette girl. You know her, if I can't think of her name. But I said, what's the vote count? She said, man, they need you. They need your vote. And I shouldn't tell you this, but I went to somebody, very powerful person. I said, hey, where are you at? They said, man, they need you. You know what that person did? They left the room. I shouldn't tell you that. It'd probably get me in trouble. But that bothered me. Now they still get charged children for education. But I wasn't for William Lambert's bill last year on that because, like Vincent says, our prisons are full, folks. They're full. Our jail's full. It's going to cost us $330 million to build a jail here in Rutherford County. We can't afford to build schools. That's the stuff I was fighting for 16, 18 years ago with our sheriff. I watched this county spend $650,000 on tennis courts, folks. And we didn't own the property. Murfreesboro owned the property. I talked about the other night on my radio program. I got a show Sunday nights called Conversation Mike Sparks, 5 to 6, 100.5 FM. I said, what if you just spent $32,000 on the jails, helping with job skills, interview skills, a library? You know what their library was at the jail? It may still be that way. It was an old shopping cart with like romance novels on it. True story. But nobody had the vision to start looking at changing men's lives. Men of valor, they're changing men's lives. They're investing. Jelly Roll was there the other day, and the governor talked about pardoning him. They're changing men's lives around. Celebrate Recovery is changing men's lives around. I've got a young son that's giving me trouble. You know, he's doing a lot better now. Drugs and alcohol is a serious issue. Probably half y'all probably have a brother or a cousin or a nephew right now that's got a drug problem that's on the streets, and you worry about him. I just had a guy that I talked to. His nephew is going to prison, 15 to 20 years. I know another guy shot his dad, killed his dad, going to prison, probably 20 years. It goes back some of this mental health. And the guy's dad never would in his life. But you know what's so sad? You know what the cost is to incarcerate somebody for 20 years? It's a lot of money. You're looking at probably $1 million to incarcerate somebody. So as a fiscal conservative, I say invest on the front end with mentorships and tell these young guys and girls, make good decisions. bad decisions have consequences. And we're really all in this. We're really all in this stuff together, man. We really are. This Sunday night, I've got the sheriff candidate on the radio with me. Y'all can call in and ask him some questions.
Just to piggyback on what I was saying earlier is we passed a bill last year about what they called their vouchers, where they give kids money to go to school, right? So we did 83% of people who receive those vouchers are already in private school. So we're giving people who don't need money more money, but we're going to ask undocumented students or families to pay for a public education. There's something wrong with that. If you don't see that something's wrong with that picture, then I can't help you. I don't know what's going on. But obviously, they sold this program that it was going to help poor black and brown kids to get a better choice in education, and they can move and do whatever they wanted to. And guess what? 83% of the people are already in private schools. So they just gave them free money. So it's a priority issue. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Hey there. Just one quick question. Do you support DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion? Everybody on stage.
Man, that's a yes or no answer. The answer is yes. But I also want to clear up when you say most people, when I just shout out, I want everybody, when I say this, when I count to 3, I want you to tell me what's the first word that comes to your mind when I say DEI. 1, 2, 3.
White women.
Right. So it's not black women or black people. White women are the number 1 recipient of DEI. Black people are like number 5. You have white women, then you have veterans. You have so many other people before that. So DEI is not a black issue. But it was, as I was talking to you earlier, how black people always take up the fight for something that may not be their fight. This is one of those things. I don't understand what's bad about diversity. What's bad about inclusion? What's bad about equity? Which one of those do you not agree with? Because the playing field has not been leveled. That's why those things were needed. Because if not, we would still have white men running all of the corporations, and no one would ever, because people hire who they know. There's an opportunity. We understand it, especially as black people. We have to be 3 times, your parents have probably told you have to be 3 times as good as your white counterpart, which is not true. But just think about this. I want you to think about this. I came from a single-parent home. My mom had 3 boys. I'm the youngest. My father was an alcoholic, and he was a smart person, but he was an alcoholic. I had to overachieve to get to where I am. Overachieve. By any means, I probably should not be here. But there's people, just because their dad, not him, because I know his story, and I know that he's worked hard to get to where he's been, where he is. Well, I'll say being, because he may not be here after November. I'm just messing with you. I like Mike. But at the end of the day, we have to work hard to do that, and that's not fair. And all we're doing is just asking you to level the playing field to give us a fair chance. Because when black people lead, everybody rises. If black people, you take care of black people, everybody rises. And so we have to make sure that we still continue to fight for that. Just because before it was DEI, then it was CRT. Do y'all remember that? CRT was a critical race thinking. Critical race theory, right? That's what you come to college for, to learn how to critically think. And they want to handicap you that. Why would they want you not to learn how to critically think? I don't understand, but I'll pass it over. But to answer your question, yes.
Yeah, I'll go back to what Dr. King talked about, the content of your character. When Marvin reached out to me in that simple text, just wanting to know more, and he was just lost, didn't know what he wanted to do. I don't know if y'all ever been lost. I was lost when I was 17, 18, 19. I could have easily went to jail with some of the bad decisions, but Marvin worked hard, played hard, was honest. Right now, if I call him, he'll probably be, because he'll ask how this went. He's either in law school, well, he's in law school right now. Joker's studying his butt off. How many of y'all want to go to law school, by the way? A couple of y'all? Okay. Well, I was asking for those magazines. that he's in, and I got like 10. I gave them all out because I told him he could use it as a marketing tool for some of y'all. If y'all ever want to meet with him and talk to him, whether it's DEI or talk about law school or whatever, I've kind of always had kind of a heart for minorities. I watched what happened with two friends of mine when I was a little boy, with two young African American kids grew up a block from me. They were so poor, there wasn't no safety net back in those days. There wasn't no Boys and Girls Club. And the irony is, the Boys and Girls Club is where it is in Smyrna. They lived in a little shack in the back. They'd walk around my neighborhood. We'd play ball with them. Didn't have coats. My mom would buy them a coat. They were poor and got taken away from their parents, put in preparatory school. The dad wasn't there. Wasn't no social services. And we'd go see him. Sadly, one went to prison. One came to see me. But, what probably led to that, that's why I got that $250,000 for cemetery school. You know what cemetery school is? Anybody know? You know? Okay, good. To me, it's just cool. It's an old black school from the 60s. Left behind, we got $250,000 to restore it. I don't know if y'all know Vincent Windrow, Dixie, I think you know him. And it's over by the battlefield. In fact, Jacob, my intern, said he drove by there, I think yesterday. Secretary of State was with me. Shane Reeves was with me. Because people look at me like I'm crazy. Why are you wanting $250,000 to restore this little black school? To be honest with you, the speaker ended up helping me. He ended up doubling my grant for me. I shouldn't tell you that, but he ended up doubling my grant. But they turned electricity on, got a new roof over there. But when kids go on field trips, they're going to be able to see that. They're going to be able to see the hardships that people went through. Because I watched those kids go through some hardship. They didn't have a chance. And people say, well, you can pull yourself up by bootstraps, but shit, if you ain't got no boots, how you pull yourself up? And these kids had some tough times. Marvin, fortunately, had some connections. That's why I'm so proud of that magazine, because he mentions me as a father figure, mentions AI. Get good at AI. Whether you like it or not, it's there. It ain't going away. I was at a conference here talking about AI, and what the guy said years ago in one of my media classes, he said, yeah, AI is going to replace some jobs, but it's going to be the people that know AI that's going to be replacing those jobs. We can replace a lot of those jobs at state capitol. I don't think we're going to do that, but it's a game changer, so y'all get good at it, and if y'all need me in any way, I'll have some cards. I do have the record of getting interns hired, just saying. And if y'all want to intern with me or any of us, just let me know. The internship, I'd look into it, get with Dr. Burns. Y'all know Dr. Burns out here, Mark Burns. And it's a game changer. Michaela Lewis, you know Michaela, works for Yusuf. I got her, ended up getting her hired. The boy that was a protester, I got his girl, he ran for office later. I got his girl that campaigned for him to be my intern. I said, that's who I want. Never even met her. She's now Yusuf Hakim's L.A. and making big money too. What do you reckon they're making? 65, 70? And it's a good job. But anyways, if you want a career in state government, like After mentioned, sometimes the state's hiring. But I'm telling you, man, get your foot in the door with internships, whether it's with us or with other departments. It's a game changer.
Any other questions or anyone who may have any other? One more? One more?
Hi, my name's Janice McCord. I'm shameless plugging right now. I'm running for Rutherford County School Board Zone 1, so Mike, I'm in your zone. So I wanted to go back to the AI question. You guys are about to graduate from college, go Raiders, but the likelihood that AI is going to take your job over an immigrant is substantially higher. Is there any legislation going forward that would stop future companies from hiring AI agents? Would there be any penalty or taxes on companies that hire AI agents instead of hiring real people that provide for their pet families?
The answer is no, but I like the way you're thinking.
Yeah.
But there's no legislation out there at this point right now. And like I say, I think this is a point that I'm kind of in between where I do know how to use technology, but I'm still, I won't say I'm afraid of it, but like the AI stuff, I'm still learning about it myself. And so I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but there's something that I would encourage you all to learn more about it, because it's here to stay and it's going to be a tool. But we also have to learn how to make some laws to keep them from being abused, because a lot of times the laws that we make, they're regressive. Something had to happen in order for us to make a law. But we're going to have to think critically and have some forward thinking of what could happen to do that. And that's one of the ideas that we need to have. So that's something that maybe we
Yeah.
can flush out.
Absolutely. Oracle, I believe, it cut 26,000 jobs recently, and they're supposed to build their headquarters in Nashville. So that's 26,000 jobs that isn't coming to the city. So that's something to think about.
And just to make a point is this is how bills happen, is through discussion with the community. She brings up an idea, and then maybe have some information behind it, some documentation, and then that's how we talk about it, and then we we make a bill about it and see if there's something we can do. We don't sit up there and think about what bill can we possibly think of today. It comes through discussion and interaction with people. So thank you for your question.
All right, no problem.
You know, I would get good at it. How many of y'all using AI now? Okay, whether ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, Grok. In my Bible study, I'm not a teacher, but I'm there and I'm listening. And everybody's older. They're like 80 years old. But I love picking up the wisdom from these people. I'll take my Bible lesson and I'll snap photos of the lesson. And then say it's Deuteronomy chapter 12 through chapter 14. I'll just say, write me a lesson plan from this and give me tips on how we can use this today. And I'll share that on Facebook, and I'll find me a good image that fits that. But the way I look at it in my Bible study, people, they'll be looking at me like, what am I doing? But I'm reaching people, like my friend that's paralyzed who can't get to church. It'll reach people. It is concerning, there's no doubt. The whole times we're in is concerning. I heard Randy Boyd, he's a UT president, and he's very passionate about education. And you hear a lot of talk out there, well, you don't need a degree. You don't need a degree. You got AI, you got all. No, get your degree. And one thing you got to do, like Vincent said earlier, man, you got to be on your A game. I'm assuming y'all are Deltas, aren't you? Most of y'all Deltas. Okay. AKA, Delta's back here. Well, I got a Delta called me today. No, it was yesterday. I've been so busy I hadn't had a chance to call her back. Sherry Jackson, she graduated TSU. I don't know if y'all know Sherry. You know Sherry? Yeah, she's grew up right there on Jefferson Street. She was in prison for 7 years. She was in prison for 7 years. She just reached out to me years ago. She helps people that have been incarcerated find jobs. And here's what's cool. That's why I talk about the power of prayer, man. I'm telling you, this stuff's real. Sherry's got an awesome testimony, but she's kind of got an attitude. You know how I'm not saying how some women can be, but she's got an attitude. You all know what I'm talking about. And I love her to death. And I tell her, she said, I was telling her I told her to go pray over a building. She got the building. She got the building to help incarcerated, you know. When I first met her, she literally had a dream. She was literally in prison when I first met her. It's a longer story. Harold Love Jr. knows about it. It's a crazy story. Maybe I'll share it on the radio one night. And she got another rep was there that's been replaced by Harold Love. She started telling me she grew up prostitution, drugs. Man, it was bad. And I was a brand new lawman. I hadn't even got sworn in, and I'm thinking to myself, Lord, you must be driving this van because it's so crazy. It's just so nuts. I'm with this woman. So she shows me her office. She was unorganized. She was behind on rent. So I'm I've wrote a book, Learn to Barter, Trade Out, telling her how to get her office stuff done. But she told me this dream she had. She had a dream she's going to get out of prison on her birthday. She went for the judge. And she tells the judge, it's my birthday today. I had a dream getting out of prison. She said, Judge said, I don't know about that. You got some outstanding warrants for your arrest in, I think it was Williamson County. They went to look for the warrants, and the warrants disappeared. She got out of prison on her birthday. So I'm telling her, girl, you need to write a book. She says, I don't need to write no book. She said, Lord, they never told me to write a book. I said, maybe God's using me as that voice to inspire you to write that book. Sherry Jackson make a great speaker. She's been over in Great Britain. Even though she's got a bad record, they give her a pass. She'll call me, Representative Sparks, you ain't going to believe this. I got a pass. I guess she just goes right on through at the TSA gates. But she's got an awesome story. But she came from the inner city. She called me years ago. I remember she was crying. She called me, Rep, there's just no way for us to get out. She was crying. Almost got me crying. But she didn't really have that safety net. She didn't have those mentors. I fortunately had some of that. My police chief lived next door. I got set up by a bad cop when I was a kid. She knew he was a bad cop. She said, let me have that ticket. She said, dude's a bad cop. And I preached her funeral. but I had some that believed in me. She knew I was straight up. That's why you need mentors. I'm telling you, it's a game changer. Get out there and help Vincent knock on doors. Help Afton knock on doors. Even though you may not be running for office in 10 years, you may be in Vincent's seat. You may be in Afton's seat. You may be in my seat. You never know. But anyway, I can ever be of service. Y'all are welcome to call me. I've got my card. I've got my cell number on it.
I believe that's all the time we have for questions tonight. Can we please just have a hand for our panelists once again? I'm going to call Sydney back up here if you'd like to close us out for the evening.
First of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone who came. And just once again, thank you to the organizations who took the time to make tables about voter registration or civic responsibility catered towards their mission of their organization. I also want to thank all the candidates for coming today and taking the time to come to a panel and interact with college students. And it means a lot, and it shows that you guys are very dedicated to what you guys are doing. So wish you all best of luck on the rest of your campaigns. I just want everyone to just take notice from tonight and realize that it's all our responsibility to be engaged with civic engagement and getting people registered to vote and being knowledgeable about what's going on, because everything that's happening on the state level is affecting us. And that's the first level of things that we should be thinking about is the things that's happening on the state level, because we're literally here, Memphis, Nashville, Tullahoma, wherever you're from. State and local government is really important. So once again, thank you guys, and thank you to the panelists. Thank you to Representative Sparks and Representative Dixie. Thank you guys for just showing up, and yeah, y'all have a wonderful rest of y'all night.